Asian gaming business journey to global expansion.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, CEO Alex Leese. I'm delighted to be here. No, not working? Can we get Alex a microphone that's working, please, guys? Coming. So,
I'll give you mine.
There we go, perfect. So speaking to Alex through the course of not just this morning, really, but the whole year we've been working together in leading up to Pronet planting their flag in Asia, in Manila, so to speak. It kind of leads us nicely into the topic of discussion today, which is kind of, I suppose, with all our international friends here. I mean, the great thing about SiGMA, it's such an eclectic mix of so many nationalities. We are speaking to Asian companies and Asian individuals all the time who are trying to do the reverse of what you've achieved with Pronet and maybe take Asian brands into the other global markets that you've got experience in, like LATAM and Europe. So maybe a few lessons you've learned on your journey in the reverse, and some advice, I suppose, for people that want to dip their toe in Europe and LATAM.
Yeah, absolutely, Patrick. Thank you for that. So, I mean, in terms of Pronet Gaming's success thus far, it's been based around Europe, Africa, and most recently LATAM, and in particular the Brazilian market has been the real area of expansion. We've learned that market over the last 3 years. We simply found ourselves in the right time, right place with the right people, the right local speakers, Portuguese speakers, and it was that was the key to our success. And in many ways, now that Pronet Gaming is effectively moving itself into Asia now, which is probably something that we wanted to do quite a while ago, but the Brazilian opportunity actually presented itself at that time, and it was the right decision to take that chance whilst it was there. But now that Pronet Gaming is sort of going into the Asian market, you know, we are on a learning journey ultimately. But one of the things that we're finding well received by potential clients is actually the ability to educate clients based in Asia on going into LATAM. So it's quite a nice mutual exchange, really, of expertise. And I think, like, in many ways, some of the Asian operators who've been here for a long time, they almost want to test us out, I think, a little bit by going into LATAM with us, which then paves the way for a bit more confidence, which will then go on, hopefully, to securing some of their more established Asian business.
And just to educate people about LATAM as well that aren't that familiar, I mean, we have in Asia a mix, predominantly unregulated markets, but some regulated markets in there as well, like the Philippines and to a certain extent Singapore. In LATAM, is it a similar landscape? Regulation in Brazil, for example, which is one of the big markets, but it's sketchy in other countries in the LATAM area?
Yeah, I mean, for many, many, many years, all the countries across LATAM were definitively grey, and it almost seemed as if there would never be a pathway towards regulation. And then it started to move forward. So Mexico, for example, they have a semi-grey, semi-regulated market operation. Then Colombia then moved towards regulation. That was done in a very, very robust way, whereby the law firm that advised the Spanish government on their regulations, he was then brought in by the Colombian government to manage their own regulations. And actually, for that reason, it's been done in a very kind of Western European way, whereby you've now got 20 regulated, licensed operators in that market. Of course, the most populous country in LATAM, Brazil, with over 210 million people, that was the one that everyone was waiting for. And I would say in the last 18 months particularly, the market has just exploded. And I think that came because of the fact that the law was actually originally signed by the previous president, 𝐂𝐭𝐡, which meant that it was legalized, but they never managed to put the regulation in place in time, and therefore the law expired. But actually what it did mean is it gave a window of opportunity for many of the media owners and the football clubs in particular to take the marketing money from the gambling operators. So now obviously what you see across the Brazilian market is every single club in the Brasileirão has got a gambling sponsor on it, and that kind of gives you an indication as to a market which is starting to mature. Fast forward a further 6 to 12 months, regulation has now been fully announced, and they expect that to happen towards the end of the year. As to whether we'll see that in Asia in terms of that pathway to regulation, who knows? I mean, there's been, various murmurings, but I think really the only credible licensed market at the moment in Asia is, of course, the Philippines, where we're sat now, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the likes of Vietnam and Thailand in the future.
How does obviously Pronet Gaming is launched in Asia now officially. How does the pathway to getting launched in Asia compare to the journey in Latin America? I mean, are they vastly different? Was one easier than the other, or how have they compared?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I think, again, I would say that just because of previous impetus with regards to Pronet's expansion into LATAM, I think it was probably somewhat easier. I think from a product perspective, it's more familiar. Of course, there's always a degree of localization that is needed in terms of PSPs and front end, but the reality is that it's not so different from what you see in Western Europe. If you contrast that compared to what we see here, the idea that a B2C operator would have 4 sportsbooks on the front end, that's something that is completely alien to many of the operators in Western Europe and LATAM. So that's been like a definitive challenge. And in terms of the hiring of teams and the setup, again, I would probably say that LATAM was a bit more familiar, I think. And that's maybe where Pronet Gaming actually can then start to help operators and providers alike who are based in Asia who want to go into LATAM, because ultimately we've been there and we've done it, and we're working with 2 or 3 of the biggest operators in Brazil who are in their top 10. So that is a definitive degree of credibility, hopefully, that we can bring to the table. But Asia, it's been quite a slow journey, I think, and we've had to be quite considerate about it. The worst thing that we could have done would be to have rushed into the markets and had a product and a team that wasn't fit for purpose, because then your reputation is burned. So it's been slow, but we've done things the right way. With securing the relationship with 𝐂𝐭, making sure the team was right, and, well, we're here now.
When you ask anybody about, it comes down to selling, I suppose, in Asia, if you're selling tech or you're selling IT systems or product, and you ask people, if you're new in the market, what the 3 most important things when you're selling are, they all say the same thing: price point, price point, price point. Yeah. Is that the same in LATAM, or is it skewed slightly differently when you're selling? Is it the first thing people ask you is how much it costs?
That's very interesting. I guess that's a cultural difference. I think probably across Western Europe and LATAM, there's a certain reticence or sort of shyness to kind of get straight into a commercial discussion. Does that mean that it prolongs the sales cycle, whereby you've gone down the road of giving potential clients proposals and you've indulged them in demos of the product and the platform, only to then find that actually their true goal was on price? I maybe prefer the approach in Asia, which tends to be a bit more kind of upfront and direct. And ultimately, if you can show that your price is at least competitive with the other providers in the market, that then opens the door then to a conversation around the differences in products. But I think I prefer the model over here in Asia, really.
And obviously now you've launched in Asia, you're going to have to look at markets to target specifically. I know the Philippines is on that list. If there's anybody out there listening to this or out there with their ear to the ground trying to figure out where to start if they're going to target LATAM or even Europe, what would your recommendation be? Where do you think that there's the most growth potential in both LATAM and Europe in individual country terms?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I know I've spoken about Brazil a lot. There's over 1,000 operators now live in Brazil, okay? And
that's got to be saturated by this point, surely.
That's pretty saturated. So the room to grow in that market now is probably a bit more limited, I would say. Are 1,000 operators going to get a license? No. You know, it's going to be probably around 40 or 50, I would say.
And are they all cutting each other's throats on margins and bonuses and offers and client acquisition?
I mean, I think there actually tends to be like quite a lot of fly-by-night operators. They'll sort of pop up one day, offer big bonuses, and then they're gone the next. There's probably a bit of that, which is why the market needs to be regulated. But there is also the fact that the way the licensing is being done is that you've got a system whereby it's a license per company, and under that license, you're allowed to have 3 URLs. So actually what we're seeing now is actually a lot of M&A activity in the Brazilian market. Like if you've got one big operator and they're prepared to front up the €5 million fee for the license, which guarantees it for 5 years, and they've got 2 additional slots for URLs, for them to do some kind of acquisition activity is actually quite an obvious thing to do. But I would say that in terms of growth potential, there are other markets in LATAM which are probably a little bit less developed, like the likes of Peru, the likes of Chile, and of course Mexico. I think they're probably quite interesting at the moment for the Asian operators, unless there is a true appetite to get into the Brazilian grey market now, test it out, and then when it comes to the acquisition of a license, be prepared to obviously make the investments to secure that, but it comes at a high cost.
I think we spoke on this stage, but upstairs and over there last year, and I said to you, I'm sure I said to you at the time, where do you want to see Pronet in Asia in 12 months? Of course, 12 months ago, you didn't have the stand. The office wasn't open, you hadn't sort of built a team, so now that is in place. Yeah. What's the plan for the next 12 months where you want to be when you're at SiGMA next year in Asia?
Yeah, well, I think, as you said, Patrick, back then it was we will be here. We are on our way and we are coming. As I sit here now, I can say that we've arrived.
Yeah.
We have the office, we have the team, we have the 𝐂𝐭 accreditation. So we've arrived. Next year, I want to be saying that we're established.
Yep.
With a much larger existing team, with many more operator clients on board on the platform, whether we have pushed them into the LATAM markets or whether we've secured their business for Asia, hopefully a bit of both, I would say. So that would be my aim, to really be sat here next year to say, you know, we are well and truly on the ground now.
Okay, well, many thanks, Alex. I know Alex is a very approachable guy, so if you want to catch up with him and maybe pick his brains and anything that he said, the Pronet Gaming stand is over that way somewhere, and it's easily found because there's a queue about 3 miles long of people trying to win an iPhone 15.
Yeah, I'm going to need to go and buy some new prizes, I think, actually, because that queue is much longer than we'd actually anticipated, but yeah, it's all good.
Okay, Alex, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Patrick.
Cheers.